The morning had started like any other. Quiet. The sun filtered through the blinds, striping the kitchen table with warm light. I sat with my usual mug of black coffee and a piece of toast that had gone cold, half listening to the soft hum of the dishwasher. It should have been peaceful. It was, until I opened my phone. My screen lit up with smiling faces, a flood of photos, captions, and tags. My cousins, my siblings, even distant relatives, were all gushing about the upcoming family reunion at the lakehouse. I blinked, then blinked again. No message, no invite, no mention. Just like last year. And the year before. They didn't even bother to hide it this time. Public posts, group selfies, countdowns. As if I didn't exist. I set my phone down slowly. The toast was in my hand, untouched. I stared at it, but all I could taste was the memory of last time, when I brought that homemade casserole, and they laughed. Said it tasted like sadness. When I found out my usual room had been given to Aunt Helen's Pomeranian, I had smiled through it, like always. I always thought staying silent kept the peace, I muttered to myself. Turns out, it just made me invisible. Mom? Callie's voice startled me. My daughter, 14 and full of more life than I ever had at that age, stepped into the kitchen, holding her phone like it was a lifeline. Did you know about the reunion? She asked, eyes wide. Everyone's talking about it in the family group chat. I stiffened. What group chat? She hesitated, then walked over and turned her screen toward me. There it was. Plans, rooms being claimed, meal rotations, jokes, inside jokes, all rolling past like a train I'd never been allowed to board. I wasn't invited, I said softly, trying to smile. Probably an oversight. Callie frowned. An oversight? But Grandma commented, she's organizing it. How could she forget you? Her voice cracked just slightly. That's what cut me the most. It wasn't just my pain anymore. It was hers, too. I swallowed hard. Sweetheart, sometimes grown-ups have weird ways of doing things. Or mean ones, she snapped, pulling her phone back. Why didn't they invite you? I looked at her, really looked. This wasn't about a weekend. It was about the reality she was beginning to see. That the people we called family didn't see me as one of them. And by extension, maybe not her either. I don't know, I said honestly. But I promise you, it has nothing to do with you. She didn't believe me. I didn't believe me. I stood by the sink, staring out into the backyard, letting the silence fill the room. Behind my eyes, memories stirred, old and bitter. My 7th birthday. They gave me a sweater, 3 sizes too big, said I'd grow into it. It still smelled like my older sister. My high school graduation, Mom said she couldn't make it because the dog had a grooming appointment. When Dad got sick, I was the one who stayed, changed his sheets, held his hand when he forgot my name. My siblings sent flowers, posted prayers. I was always the strong one, the dependable one, the leftover. And now, this reunion, they didn't even bother to pretend anymore, just cut me out clean. I opened a new message on my phone, typed out a sentence, then deleted it. Tried again. It's fine if you don't want me there. Just don't act surprised when I stop pretending we're still family. Deleted that, too. Why don't you just tell them? Callie asked from the doorway, arms crossed. Because they'll say I'm overreacting. Again, that I'm dramatic. Callie walked up, placed her hand on mine. If you don't stand up now, they'll never stop. I looked at her, at the fire in her eyes, that fierce, unflinching kind of courage I never dared to have. They'll never stop, she repeated. I closed my phone, took a deep breath. I'm not going to start a fight, I said, mostly to myself. I just need to see if I still matter. 2 days later, we arrived at the lakehouse. Uninvited. It was late afternoon. The gravel crunched beneath our tires as we pulled in. The house looked the same. White paint, green shutters, porch swings swaying in the breeze like nothing ever changed. I stepped out first. Callie followed. No one noticed. They were all on the porch, laughing, drinking, backslapping. My mother in a floral dress, my brother holding court like he was born to it. They didn't see me. Not until Aunt Linda turned her head and froze. Her smile fell. One by one, heads turned. Expressions stiffened. Not a single one stepped forward. Callie shifted closer to me. I felt her fingers brush mine. I leaned down and whispered, "Don't let them see you cry. You belong here more than they do." From the far side of the porch, someone began walking toward us, not with a welcome, but with something else in their eyes. Not anger, not confusion, guarded. Callie and I stepped onto the porch, gravel still crunching under the weight of what we weren't saying. Laughter quieted, not all at once, just enough for me to notice. A beat too long. A silence too loaded. Vera was the first to speak, her voice wrapped in a tight little smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Donna, we didn't know you were coming." I smiled back, just as forced. Last-minute decision. Callie didn't say anything, but she looked at me like she already knew this wasn't going to go smoothly. Around us, chairs scraped. Someone cleared their throat. A few turned their heads, then turned them right back, pretending to be mid-conversation. I caught whispers, low and quick like static on an old radio. Funny thing about families like mine, silence can scream louder than words. Inside, not much had changed. The same faded photographs lined the hallway, like a museum of curated affection. I headed toward the guest room I used to stay in, pulling Callie's suitcase behind me. The door was shut. My name, the one Mom used to tape onto the frame for each reunion, wasn't there. Before I could ask, Vera appeared behind me, sipping from a glass. "We thought you weren't coming," she said, opening the door to show Aunt Marla's floral luggage already unpacked. "So we gave your room to Marla. Hope you're okay with the couch." I paused. Not because I needed the room, God knows I've slept on floors with less dignity, but because that sentence wasn't a question. It was a declaration. "Sure," I replied, voice steady. "Couch is fine." Callie looked up at me, her eyes narrowing. "I can take the couch," she offered quickly. "No, baby. We're good," I said, patting her shoulder. It wasn't about the room. It never was. It was about how easily I'd been written out of the script. Dinner was exactly what I expected. A long wooden table with places set like a wedding rehearsal. Callie and I were seated at the far end, right next to the drafty window and the broken chair with the wobbly leg. Plates clinked, glasses filled, laughter danced until it didn't. Vera stood up, holding a dish. "I didn't know you were gluten-sensitive, Donna," she called down the table. "Next year, maybe let us know in advance, if you're invited." A few forks paused mid-air. One cousin coughed. No one spoke up. I felt Callie's hand stiffen on her fork. I didn't look at her. I didn't want to see the shame that should have never been hers. This isn't about food, I thought, staring at the roasted vegetables. It never was. Midway through dessert, the front door creaked open. Thayer, the lakehouse manager, stepped in. He wore the same khaki vest he'd had for years, clipboard in hand, easy smile on his face. "Evening, folks," he said. "Just doing a quick check-in." His eyes landed on me. "Donna, glad you're using your share. Been a long time." The room paused. Just for a breath. I caught it. The flicker in Vera's eyes, the way she clutched her wine glass just a little tighter. "Good to see you too, Thayer," I replied. Callie glanced at me, confused. I gave her a small nod, a silent answer to a question she hadn't asked yet. After the dishes were cleared, we found our corner, an air mattress in the den. Callie sat cross-legged on the floor, folding her sweatshirt. "Why do you let them treat you like this?" she asked. I sat beside her, leaning back against the wall. Because, for a long time, I thought being quiet meant being strong. She frowned. "But it doesn't work. They don't stop." I sighed, feeling the years I'd never let myself feel. I raised half of them, changed diapers, paid bills when they lost jobs, took care of their messes. I thought if I just kept doing the right thing, they'd remember. "That's not love, Mom," she said, voice soft but firm. "That's them using your silence." I didn't argue. Because she was right. I remembered a line I'd read once, maybe in a book, maybe from someone smarter than me. Forgiveness is not weakness, but silence in the face of cruelty is surrender. I wasn't sure what I was ready to do yet, but I knew I wasn't ready to keep surrendering. Later that night, long after the laughter faded and the wine bottles emptied, I stepped out onto the deck. The lake shimmered in the moonlight. Quiet, still, honest. I stood there for a while, arms folded, letting the cold bite through my sleeves. Then I heard her, Vera. She didn't stumble, didn't slur, just walked up beside me, glass in hand, eyes scanning the water. "You really shouldn't come where you're not wanted," she said. No malice, just venom dipped in sugar. She walked away, her steps light on the wood, like she hadn't just poured gasoline on everything we'd buried. I stayed there, staring at the water, at the reflection of someone I barely recognized anymore, and I said it. Quiet but clear, that's enough. I woke before dawn, the room colder than I remembered. This was no longer my guest room. The curtains were half drawn, the lake lay still outside, murmuring secrets in the faint light. I sat on the edge of the bed, heart heavy, and thought back to that night I signed the papers. I'd taken money from a small trust, hidden, disguised, just so I could buy the lakehouse. A place I could finally claim, a place to belong. I had believed in it, believed it could cut through years of being ignored. Vera's voice echoed in my memory. "Using your share." I pressed my palm to the glass window, feeling the chill. I whispered to Callie, sleeping somewhere beyond the wall. This lake was mine before they pretended otherwise. I rose and walked slowly toward the boathouse path, clutching a rolled property map I'd kept hidden. The map bore my name, faint but legible, dotted lines, survey notes, my signature. At my feet, fresh footprints trailed near the pier. Someone had walked this line recently. The map triggered flashes, late nights signing under lamplight, masks of approval from family lawyers, the hush around questions, my own rising fear of rejection. Callie's voice called from behind me. "Mom, what's your name doing on that map?" I forced a calm smile. "Just an old plan." Inside me, anger and sorrow roiled together. That evening, Rosalind, the longtime housekeeper, came to the back door, dragging shoes through the threshold. She looked fragile, worn by time and secrets. I led her to the boathouse. The moon stretched over the water as she began to speak. She confessed Vera had coerced her years ago to sign official documents that stripped my legal name from the lakehouse title. She admitted Vera threatened to ruin her pension, harm her reputation, even threaten her family. Rosalind's voice trembled as she showed me the signature she was forced to write. I held back tears and rage. I understood in that moment this wasn't just about exclusion. It was theft, the inheritance of my identity. Back at dinner, Vera raised her glass, lips curved in triumph. "To the true owners of this property," she said. Her voice slipped, sharp in the hush. I looked at her steadily. I said quietly, "I know what I signed. I know what was done." A ripple moved through the table. Relatives exchanged looks. Vera laughed as if dismissing it, but her hand shook around her wine. Callie pressed my knee. I drew breath. I had unsettled their facade. Later, I walked alone to the boathouse, air heavy with nighttime moisture. I sat at the dock, legs dangling, fear rattling in my chest. I dialed Roscoe. My voice was low, urgent. "Rosalind just told me everything." He listened, then said, "We'll verify signatures. We'll find witnesses." I closed my eyes, planning the careful dance ahead, how to expose Vera without crumbling first. I remembered Maya Angelou's words, "Do the best you can until you know better." So now that I did know, I would act better. Just as I rolled the map tight, I heard a footstep behind me, soft, deliberate. I spun. In the moonlight stood a silhouette holding a folded paper. My heart froze. The figure said nothing, only extended the paper toward me. The air dropped. The reflection of the moon glinted off the edges. Breakfast started like any other forced family gathering. Everyone pretending, cheerful voices, clinking spoons, but no real warmth. The kind of morning where every smile feels a little too wide. I sat at the corner of the table, making small talk about the weather, the traffic, someone's new patio furniture. All while my eyes scanned the room like a poker player, tracking tells. Vera held court at the head of the table, laughing a little too hard, her voice a notch too loud. She was performing civility like it was theater. Callie sat beside me, silent, picking at her food. I could feel her discomfort in the way she hunched her shoulders, almost bracing for impact. I sipped my coffee slow, steady. Today wasn't going to be like the others. I repeated to myself, politeness is the poison of truth. And today, I was done swallowing poison. I told them I needed to run an errand, then took the car into town. The quiet of the road felt like relief. At Roscoe's office, he looked up from a folder and said, "You're not gonna like this." He laid the papers in front of me. It was a copy of Dad's original will, and then an urgent codicil slipped in days after my surgery. I'd been under anesthesia while Vera and her lawyer pushed it through. Legal, yes. Ethical, not even close. Roscoe explained the loophole. They'd gotten my consent through silence. But silence wasn't agreement. I held the file in my lap, hands numb. "This could blow the family up," he warned. "It already has," I said, folding it back. I didn't come here to throw a grenade. I came to light a fuse. By noon, the family had dragged lawn chairs out by the water. The table was filled with cold sandwiches, watermelon slices, sweet tea sweating in plastic cups. Laughter floated, but every chuckle felt staged. Vera, perched under the biggest umbrella, leaned in just loud enough for everyone to hear. Some people cling to things they never earned. "It's sad, really." A few cousins chuckled, looking down at their drinks. I looked up and said, "Funny. I always thought real value came from what you build, not what you steal." The table went quiet. Callie's hand found mine. Vera didn't reply, but her fingers tightened around her glass. That was enough. That was the first crack. Later, during a family trivia game, Vera's idea of bonding, Callie buzzed in early with an answer. She got it wrong. It was harmless, but Vera smiled too wide and said, just like her mother, always thinks she's right, never is. It cut through the yard like broken glass. People paused, unsure if it was a joke or something else. My daughter's face turned red. She looked at me, whispering, "Mom, can we just leave?" I shook my head. Not yet. I stared at Vera across the table. She met my gaze and held it, until she didn't. The crowd thinned out after dessert. I found Vera on the porch, alone, wine swirling in her glass. I stepped into the shade, didn't bother smiling. "You enjoy hurting people who don't fight back," I said. She tilted her head, smirking. "I enjoy honesty. Maybe that's what stings." I leaned on the railing. "I know about the will. I know what you did." She went still. Her jaw tightened. "Whatever fantasy you're building, it won't change how they see you." I nodded slowly. "No. But it changes how I see myself." For the first time in a long time, I saw her flinch. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I was in the old bedroom, sorting through old photo frames. The kind you forget you kept. I picked up one of Dad and me on the dock. The back panel was loose. When I pulled it open, a folded letter slipped out. It was yellowed, thin. My name on the front. The date. 2 weeks before he passed. My breath caught. I unfolded it with shaking hands. His first words were, "I'm sorry I didn't protect you." I sat on the edge of the bed that used to be mine. The letter trembled in my hands. My father's handwriting, uneven, unpracticed, carried the weight of years he never acknowledged out loud. He wrote of regret. Said he should have spoken up when he saw how Vera treated me. Said he let fear make decisions he should have made with love. Then, at the very bottom, almost like an afterthought, what I couldn't say, I left in the green box. I whispered the words out loud, as if saying them made them more real. "He knew," I said to the silence. "He knew everything, and he let it happen anyway." My hands shook, not from the cold, but from the kind of grief that simmers when you've waited a lifetime for someone to choose you, and they didn't. I remembered a winter night years ago, before he got sick, Christmas Eve. I'd walked into the den to find him holding a green box on his lap, thumb tracing the lid. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, like his mouth was forming the start of a sentence. Then Vera walked in, and just like that, he stood, handed her the box, and muttered, "You'll know when." That memory clung to me like frostbite. It wasn't just about something taken, it was about what was willingly given to someone else. I told Callie about it. She sat cross-legged on the bed, her voice low. "He wasn't cruel," I said. "He was cowardly. And sometimes that hurts worse." She nodded. "The opposite of love isn't hate, Mom. It's indifference." That hit deeper than I wanted to admit. That afternoon, the family gathered in the living room to sift through old heirlooms. Vera made a whole production of it, sentimental music playing from a Bluetooth speaker, everyone taking turns sharing memories. I scanned the shelves and spotted it. A dusty green metal box tucked between a stack of old board games and a vase I didn't recognize. I stepped toward it, reached out. Vera slapped my hand away, loud and sharp. The room froze. Even the music seemed to stop. "You always think everything's about you," she hissed. I didn't move, didn't say a word, just stood there, hand tingling from the hit, face burning from the shame. The room stayed silent. No one stepped in. No one said anything. That silence was louder than the slap. Callie rushed to my side, her eyes wet. But I stayed still. My silence this time wasn't surrender. It was pressure building. Later that night, I wrapped myself in a blanket and sat by the lake. The wind came off the water cold and fast. I buried my face in my hands. For the first time in years, I let myself cry without holding it back. I didn't cry because I was hurt. I cried because I was tired of swallowing my voice to keep the peace. Callie sat beside me, arms around her knees. I looked at her and said, "Maybe I never really belonged here. Maybe I told myself I did to make the pain easier." She turned to me, her voice steady. "No, Mom. You're the only one who did. That's why they had to erase you." I stared at the water. Those words didn't comfort me. They woke something up. I walked back to the house. Everyone was asleep or pretending to be. The box was gone. I searched every shelf, every room. And then I remembered Vera's car. I grabbed the spare key from the laundry drawer and stepped into the garage. The green box was in her trunk, covered with a blanket. I didn't open it. Not because I was afraid, but because I was done doing this in the dark. I placed it in the crook of my arm, held it close. The fire inside me didn't rage, it simmered, controlled, focused. No more private victories, I thought. It's time they watch me reclaim everything. I could hear a quote from somewhere in the back of my mind. "Let them think I'm quiet. Then let the truth speak louder." By morning, Vera was already playing hostess again, flipping pancakes, pouring orange juice, laughing too loud. The whole thing staged like a photo shoot. I walked in mid-sentence, the green box in my arms. I placed it gently on the center of the table. The room went still. Chairs stopped creaking. Utensils hovered mid-air. I smiled, met every eye at the table and said, "I thought we could open this together. Family secrets belong to all of us, don't they?" I woke before dawn. The lake house was silent, save for the creak of a floorboard somewhere distant. I dressed carefully, black slacks, a pale blouse, and pinned a thistle brooch over my heart. A small thorn, a quiet reminder, strength wrapped in defense. I rehearsed what I'd say tonight. Vera would try to cut me off again. I promised myself, no one will silence me again. Callie stirred in the next room, and I leaned in the doorway. "I'm not backing down," I said low. Her eyes held a flicker, anticipation, worry. The pin weighed heavier than metal. It pulsed like a heartbeat. I caught the scent of brewing traps out there. Today, I would walk carefully. The deck beside the lake filled as relatives arrived, folding chairs and iced tea in hand. Vera stood in the center, voice smooth, greeting everyone with exaggerated warmth. She said things like, "I hope everyone remembers what truly belongs where." It sounded gentle, but sting lingered in her tone. I could see her casting looks toward me, eyes sharp, posture rigid. The water behind her lapped quietly, a bitter contrast to my pulse. People shifted. Some stared at me, some looked away. I squared my shoulders. If speech is power, tonight I'd claim mine. When the time came, I walked to the podium with a steady step. My throat tightened, but I swallowed hard. I began. I inherited more than a house. I inherited truth, memory, and a duty to speak for what was hidden. Vera cut in. Maybe she should wait until she's really part of the family. The words landed like stones. Murmurs spread. I forced my voice forward. I don't need permission to exist. My words hung. Then the microphone crackled, died. Lights flickered overhead. Callie stepped in front of me. My heart sunk. This was engineered. The silence felt loud. I clenched my jaw and held my ground until staff scrambled to fix the audio. Backstage behind a curtain, Vera cornered me with an envelope and a phone. "Push harder," she whispered, "and these go public." She flicked open the folder. On the first page, photos of old debts, medical statements, emails I'd never meant to save. Evidence painted me as unstable. The second, screenshots tying Callie to rumors I'd spent nights denying. Her grin was soft but lethal. "You'd drown in your own lies," she said. My throat tightened, but I said nothing. I refused to let fear bleed through. She turned and left, smirking. The trap was laid. In the guest room, I sat on the edge of the bed. Callie beside me, both of us scanning old texts, cross-checking dates, comparing receipts. I pointed out a signature in Dad's file that looked doctored. Callie discovered messages from people claiming they heard I changed names. My blood roared. They thought they had me boxed in. I forced a dry laugh. They think this is the end. But my resolve hardened. I would box them with their own lies. Hours later, the knock came. Midnight. My door creaked open. Thayer stood there, files in hand. His face was pale. "These were slipped under my door tonight," he said. He passed me a stack of documents, each page a vein into past secrets. The walls felt too small. My pulse hammered. "I don't know who's more afraid," he whispered. "Me or them?" The folder thudded in my lap. I felt the weight of what was coming. I woke to the kind of quiet that doesn't calm you, the kind that tells you something's already gone wrong. Servants whispered in corners, exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking. Vera passed me in the hallway without a word, just a sharp nod that cut more than any sentence could. I walked past her, kept my shoulders square. The air felt charged, heavy, like thunder behind stained glass. At breakfast, Callie stirred her coffee without drinking it. She glanced toward the patio, where a few of our relatives were already whispering around Vera. I didn't have to hear it. I saw who leaned too close, who wouldn't meet my eyes, and I told myself, out loud, just once, this was the moment I'd stop pretending, stop performing. The mask slips today. By mid-morning, chairs had been dragged beneath the old oak trees. A family update, Vera called it. More like theater. Just before it began, Callie stood. No warning. Her voice broke the air like a branch snapping. "My mother wasn't invited here," she said, "but she's always belonged." Her voice trembled but didn't waver. People turned. I saw discomfort ripple through the group, shoulders shifting, hands wringing napkins. Vera didn't move. She just smiled, tight and thin. Callie stepped back beside me. I didn't say a word, but my heart clenched with something that felt like grief and pride mashed together. That moment cracked the porcelain, and everybody saw the first fracture. Vera waited. Then, in that sugary tone she wore when she was sharpening the knife, said, "Funny? I heard someone recently claimed ownership of this place under a different name." A cousin looked at me, then whispered to the woman beside him. Another leaned in, eyebrows raised. Rumors travel fast when the truth threatens comfort. The implication was clear. I wasn't just unwanted, I was fraudulent. My stomach turned, but I kept my face still. Callie grabbed my hand under the table. Her grip was tighter than usual. Vera's trick wasn't to make people hate me, it was to make them unsure I even existed. I stood slowly. "I'd like to say something," I said. Vera opened her mouth, but I didn't give her the chance. Every identity in this room has paper behind it. So does mine. The only thing false here is the story you've sold behind my back. Her lips curled. You act like a martyr now? No, I said. I'm just not afraid of your version anymore. It was quiet enough to hear the wind rattle the trees. A few people nodded slightly. A few didn't move. I didn't care. My voice didn't need their permission. Callie looked up at me like she'd just seen something she'd been hoping was true. When the crowd thinned and the chairs scattered, I pulled Roscoe and Thayer aside. Quiet place near the back patio. I asked them to trace the origin of the name rumor. Who'd spread it? And how? Thayer pulled out his phone. Roscoe opened his legal pad. Dates, times, screenshots, text messages. We triangulated the leak, a cousin who'd forwarded a draft Vera had planted. I exhaled. I had what I needed, not just to defend myself, but to corner her. I'd do it tonight. Dinner, when she was most on display. The dining room glowed soft gold by candlelight. Everyone dressed too nicely for how uncomfortable they looked. Vera raised a glass. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I watched her sip slowly. I didn't lift mine. Then a server, someone I didn't recognize, walked quietly to my seat. Placed an envelope in front of me. No word, just a glance. I opened it. Inside, a printed email, supposedly from me. It said I'd forged identification to claim land not legally mine. The words blurred for a second, then clicked into place. Another forged document. This time, meant to detonate me in front of the crowd. I didn't flinch. I held the paper between my fingers. Looked at Vera. She smiled faintly, tilting her wine glass. I smiled back. You forged this, I said calmly, loud enough for the whole table. Prove otherwise. Dawn came soft, the sky lightening like a held breath. The house felt hollow already, hallways empty, voices distant, tension cloaked over corners. I rose, heart tight. I placed the green box and my father's letter side by side on the nightstand. I dressed in quiet armor. Callie peeked in, eyes asking without words, Are you ready, Mom? I nodded. Tonight changes everything. I whispered that quote I'd held close. Speak only what you know is true. The words pulsed in my mind. Brunch was supposed to mask the tension. Vera stood to deliver a toast, glass raised. But Thayer interrupted her mid-sentence. His voice rang out. This lakehouse legally belongs to Donna Gessler. The room froze. Vera's composure cracked. Faces turned toward me. I walked forward, voice steady. Thank you, Thayer. Silence fell like a verdict. Callie's eyes glowed. Vera forced a smile, lips trembling. She lifted her glass, a mask hanging loose. Then phones buzzed. Rosalind's video appeared on every screen. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Vera coerced her, threatened her job and family, forced her hand on documents. The camera caught Vera's voice in the background, her instructions faint but clear. The proof unfolded like a confession. Silence thundered across the table. Guests covered mouths, some shook their heads in disbelief. Vera's face went pale. I watched Rosalind's trembling hands and felt a vindication I had waited years to taste. Vera stepped forward, voice tight. This is fake. It's an old video. I met her gaze. No wound was old. I was erased. This is proof I existed. Then I laid out the green box. Deeds, maps, original title, hidden signatures Vera hid for years. The room crackled with tension. Some softened, some hardened. Callie stood beside me. We were a unit. Afterward, the fallout unfolded fast. Some relatives whispered congratulations. Others glared or looked away. Vera stormed out, glasses left half full. Thayer stayed to sort paperwork. Roscoe joined with legal notices in hand. I realized this was not the end. This was the moment when they saw me. I bent and whispered to Callie. Tonight they see me. Tomorrow, I own my life. Late that night, I walked to Vera's study. The door stood ajar. My pulse thudded. The safe inside was open. Empty. Papers were strewn across the floor. The final piece had vanished. I picked up one loose file, just one note in Vera's handwriting. Good luck proving anything now. Morning came with no drama, no panic. Just light pressing softly through the curtains, like the world finally exhaled. The silence wasn't sharp anymore. It was soft, real. I sat at the edge of the bed, coffee warm in my hands, and watched Callie sit across from me, cross-legged, flipping through an old magazine without reading it. We didn't need to say anything. We were both here. Later, I walked into Vera's empty study. Papers were scattered where I'd left them. Her scent lingered faintly in the room, like old perfume clinging to faded wallpaper. She was gone. No note, no farewell. Some whispered she left the state. I didn't ask where. For once, I didn't need a last word. As I gathered the papers, I remembered something. Closure isn't justice, it's acceptance. And I'd finally found mine. Around midday, Thayer arrived. He wasn't carrying tension anymore, just a man who looked like he finally knew what to do. He handed me a letter, folded once, handwritten, weathered. It was in Dad's personal file, he said. His lawyer found it yesterday. I sat. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. It was a personal clause, separate from the official will. Thayer's own words, dated years ago. He named me the steward of memory for the lakehouse, granted permanent, irrevocable rights. My name, my identity, no condition, no expiration. Thayer looked down and said, "He knew what they were doing to you, he just didn't know how to stop it." I didn't speak for a while, just held the paper, letting it settle deep where the damage used to be. The lakehouse wasn't a reward, it was recognition. I was never forgotten. That afternoon, I walked the perimeter of the property. My feet moved slow, dock to porch, porch to garden. I touched the banister where I once sat crying when no one came to my graduation, stood beneath the oak tree where I'd hidden from yelling voices, but it wasn't pain I felt. I saw my grandmother's apron hanging on the clothesline in memory, heard her humming, remembered Callie's muddy footprints on the kitchen tile, laughed quietly. The place wasn't haunted anymore. It was reclaimed. It was mine. That evening, I invited just 4 people, Roscoe, Thayer, Rosalind, and Callie. No wine bottles popping, no speeches, just warm food, warm faces. I didn't talk about Vera. I didn't need to. I talked about garden renovations, about repainting the dock. After dinner, we walked down to the lake. A new plaque had been installed earlier that day. Small, brass, clean. The Gessler Lakehouse, Est, 1947. Steward, Donna Gessler. That was it. No fireworks, just acknowledgement. Later that night, I wrote a letter to my 17-year-old self, folded it carefully, slipped it into the green box, and placed it in the attic. I told her she was right to cry, right to rage, right to dream. And I ended with this. To the next girl who thinks no one sees her, someone always does. The sun had gone down, shadows stretched long across the living room when I heard it. A knock. Not sharp, not urgent, just soft and unsure. I opened the screen door. A teenage girl stood there, thin, uncertain, duffel bag in hand. Her eyes darted past me into the house. She cleared her throat. "I heard this place takes in the forgotten. Is that still true?" I didn't move right away. My chest tightened. Not with fear, but something else. Familiarity. I looked at her. Really looked. Then I nodded. "It is now,"